This is the Freelancer's Friend. Greetings if you're a new listener, thanks for taking the time to have a listen. And if you're a regular listener, then welcome back, my friend. I'm your host, Victor Taylor, and the show is all about helping freelancers to gain lasting success. We have a variety of guests and insights into the world of freelancing and lots of great stuff to help you on your freelancing journey. Remember to subscribe, give any feedback, and ask anything you like because you'll always receive a reply. And please share the podcast with your freelancing friends. About this episode, our guest, Colette Broomhead, helps mums in service-based businesses to cut out the noise and overwhelm and find simple strategies to achieve consistent 5k months. Her focus is on playing to your strengths, building strong habits, and keeping it light and fun. With 13 years of experience in business and marketing, Colette works with mums in particular to create strategies and foundations for a thriving business that gives her clients freedom of time, money, and location. In this episode, we chat about dealing with overwhelm, getting clients, developing a better mindset, coping with family and home distractions, and other really useful stuff for freelancing mums and freelancers in general. So let's get on with it. Welcome, Colette. Thanks for joining us. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Yes, so I'm Colette Broomhead. I'm a business coach and I work with mums mainly, and mums who have service-based businesses. So that's basically anyone who works with clients. So I tend to work with kind of coaches, freelancers, that type of thing. And I help them to get more clients, in a nutshell.
Yeah. You say that you cut out the complexity and you find simple strategies to get a really good, consistent income.
Yeah. So I think especially for mums, that tends to be one of the biggest challenges. Whenever I speak to clients or potential clients, one of the biggest things that comes up time and time again is this whole thing of time and feeling overwhelmed, dealing with the kids, the school run, like sort of day-to-day life, while also trying to build a business, and that's certainly been true for me. And I'm actually naturally quite a disorganized person anyway, so I had to really keep things simple in my own business, and so I love now being able to help other mums kind of really simplify it. I found we tend to over complicate things, especially when perhaps we're not getting the results we want, if we are struggling to get clients. Our instinct tends to be to add complexity and maybe I'll try this and I'll try this, and if I add this, and actually more often than not it's the opposite that we need to be doing, and kind of scaling back and just sort of focusing on a few core things.
Mm-hmm. So they have a lot of things going on naturally, as you say, having a family and children. Out of all that, what do you find freelancing mums find the most difficult part of running a business?
So I think one of the biggest things, so other than the kind of the simplifying, that probably actually is one of the most common pieces of advice I'll give. Like when I talk to someone for the first time, I think, and this isn't necessarily just a mum thing either, I think this is actually an entrepreneurial thing, that we come into this with tons of ideas. We tend to be, full of ideas, full of projects, full of things we want to do. We have this thing that we want to help as many people as possible with. And so it's this thing of trying to do everything at once. And then when you add that to the fact that when you look online, there are so many people out there telling you've got to be doing this, you've got to be on YouTube, you've got to be on Twitter, you've got to be on Clubhouse now and TikTok, and you've got to be doing reels on Instagram and all of this kind of stuff.
Yeah,
and
get very overwhelming.
Yeah, totally. And so, and again, it's this kind of instinct that we have that if we cut any of that stuff out, we're going to damage our business. If I'm not everywhere, I'm going to be missing out on potential clients. And so it's kind of helping people see that actually by kind of scaling that stuff back, by starting with a few core things, I kind of have a framework that I tend to work with people on, that helps people to kind of cut out the noise, and focus on the few key activities that are actually going to make the difference in their business. Yeah, I mean, the kind of complexity one is a big one, about helping people really find some focus and not necessarily do the things that everyone else is doing. Like, I'm really big on building a business that feels right to you. For me, that's about kind of values and personality, because a lot of the stuff that people are doing, especially online, isn't going to feel comfortable to everyone. And that, when I say that, I'm talking about the kind of visibility tactics. So things like Reels, like TikTok, that's not going to be for everyone. And I think to a certain extent, some people come into business feeling like almost pressured, like they need to be doing those things if they're going to kind of stay on top, or if they're going to, even like come across as credible. And of course, that's not true. So it's kind of helping people find the right way for them, for their personality, and for their values as well. I'm really big on kind of really building in your values to your business and kind of building a business around what those values are. Because I think a lot of that ick factor that sometimes comes with like online visibility, and certainly with online sales, happens when we're doing that stuff outside of our values. So kind of all of that stuff is what I work with people on.
So you need to make sure things are in line with your values, and cut back, not be so determined to do absolutely everything that you believe that you might need to do. There's a lot of conflicting information of what you should be doing, and do you have a kind of place to start where you can begin to stand back and start to focus on what you actually need to do?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, I have this kind of framework. So usually when I start working with someone, we go back, and basically the framework allows you to kind of highlight the key things that you need to be focusing on your business, so that you kind of can cut out the other stuff. So for me, the first place to start, whether you're just getting it started in business, or whether you've actually had a business for a while but perhaps you're not getting the results that you want, is your messaging. And when I say messaging, I think messaging tends to be one of those slightly fluffy, jargony kind of marketing terms where perhaps people, we don't really know what it actually means. But when I say messaging, what I mean by messaging is kind of three core pieces of information that, as a business owner, you need to be really clear on, first of all, and you then need to make it really clear to your audience and to those you're speaking to. So those three pieces of information are: who am I here to serve? So essentially, who is my ideal client? Who is it that I want to go out and find and bring into my audience and actually work with as a client? So that's kind of first and foremost. Secondly, what is it that I'm helping them with? So what are the results that I'm helping them achieve with whatever my as I say, I work with service-based businesses, so whatever my service is. And then thirdly, why should they work with me? What makes me someone to choose over someone else who does something similar? And I think those are three really, really kind of fundamental things to get clear on, and to make sure that those things are really clear, in all of your kind of content, or wherever you are being visible. Because ultimately, if people don't know that you're talking to them, they're not going to hang around and listen. And also, it kind of shapes everything else that you're doing in your business. The offers that you're creating, the service that you're providing should all be rooted in who it is you're trying to help, what it is you're trying to help them with, and then bringing you into that to make it sort of stand out, to make it be different. So that's the first thing. Usually, as I say, if I'm working with clients, more often than not, that's the first thing we do. Whether they've just started in business or whether they've been in business for a few years, it tends to always come back to let's get some real clarity on that. The second thing is the offer itself. So for me, I have found and tend to recommend that a good place to start is a kind of core offer, like a higher ticket signature offer. I always slightly hesitate with saying high ticket because I think that tends to bring to mind like super expensive, and that doesn't necessarily have to be the case. When I say high ticket, I just mean this would be your core, probably most expensive offer, but that doesn't necessarily mean it has to be like thousands and thousands or whatever. But for me, that's a great place to start, and the reason for that, well, there's a few reasons. One of those reasons is obviously when you're in the earlier days of your business, you don't necessarily have a big audience yet. And so if you're going to hit your income goals, it makes more sense to be selling a fewer number of a higher ticket offer than trying to sell, lots and lots of lower ticket offers. So that's one reason. It makes it much easier to actually hit your income goals. And I often get a bit of resistance when I say that, because I think people tend to assume or believe that it's easier to sell something cheaper than it is to sell something higher cost. And I really don't believe that's true, and haven't found that to be true in my own experience. Often we blame the price when we can't sell something, but very rarely is it the price that's the problem. Usually it's the messaging, it's the offer itself, isn't what people want, and there's other stuff at play. It's very rarely the price. If you have created something of value that people want, people will pay for it. So that's the
Absolutely.
other thing. Getting an offer together, as I say, generally speaking, I would get people to focus on a higher ticket sort of core offer first. And in the spirit of keeping things simple, just that offer until that's established, until people have got confidence and there's consistent income coming in, and then if people want to, then start to add in additional offers. Long term, you might want to have like a kind of scale of offers that you can work with people on. So that's the second one. The third thing is audience. So once you've got your messaging, once you've got your offer, you obviously want an audience to sell it to. This kind of takes you to the customer journey. So there's all these kind of marketing jargony terms like customer journey, sales funnel, and all of this kind of stuff. And essentially all it is the steps that you kind of need to take people through in order to get them to the point where they're ready to buy. So I tend to call it the customer journey because I like the idea that it is a journey you're taking people on. So I tend to refer to it as a customer journey, but it's essentially a sales funnel, or all of these things basically mean the same thing. So the first step of that is people need to know that you exist. So you need to have some kind of strategy in your business that allows you to reach your ideal clients, who you now know who those people are because you've worked on your messaging, and let them know, hey, I'm here. I can help you with this. So that needs to be there needs to be something in place to help you with that. So I'm not going to ever say to someone, you should be doing, you should have a Facebook page or you should have an Instagram account, because again, for me, it's about where you feel most comfortable. But any of those things, of course, can help you build an audience. So I would look at, again, where they feel most comfortable, perhaps where they already have an audience that they've been growing, and sort of see what makes sense. Now, social media, of course, isn't the only place where we can reach people. There are lots of other ways we can reach new people. So there's things like networking. Maybe now we can start to gradually get into more like face-to-face networking, but even then, there's still online networking. You can network on LinkedIn, you can network in Facebook groups and all sorts of places like that. I'm a big fan of guest content actually as well for reaching new people and reaching, bringing people into your audience. So things like being a guest on someone's podcast, writing guest blogs for people, doing guest Facebook lives in people's groups, are all really good ways of getting yourself out there in front of your, people who don't know you exist yet, and getting that audience growth going. And they tend to be kind of faster ways as well. There's stuff like blogging and all of that kind of stuff, which is great long-term strategies, but they tend to take a while to get going. I have a blog that I started about 4 years ago when I first started my business. And at that time, I was writing a blog post every single week religiously. And, it was a few hours work every week, planning it, writing it, getting the graphics together, publishing it and all of this kind of stuff. And I was getting very little in return at the time, like a few views. It was painful, it felt like wading through mud. But now, I haven't actually written a regular blog post now for a good couple of years. I've built up a bank of about 100 posts on my website, and I intend to go back because I actually love writing posts. But at the moment, it hasn't been a priority. But I still now get people coming into my audience every day as a result of those posts that I wrote 4 years ago, So it's a great long-term strategy, but I think people need to build in long and short-term strategies, because if you just have those long-term strategies, it can feel really demotivating at first because you're just not seeing the results yet. So it's good to have that mix. Whereas if you're just doing the short-term strategies, it's kind of quite, you get the results quickly, but they don't last very long. Like, being a guest on someone's podcast might give you a little rush of new people into your audience, but then that'll stop fairly quickly. Whereas a blog post will just continue nice and consistently on and on and on. So that's audience growth. Next, relationship building. And, once you've got this audience, it's about kind of actually turning them into like connections and helping them to get to know you. Someone's not going to work with you, someone's not going to buy from you until they, unless they feel like they've got some kind of connection with you. And this is more true in a service-based industry. Obviously with products it's slightly different, but in a service-based industry, essentially you are the product. And so people need to feel a connection with you. They need to feel like they can trust you with their money, that they trust that you're actually going to be able to deliver on the result that you're saying you are. And so you need to have something in place that's going to do that, that's going to help you build those relationships. Again, like, while I would never say you should have this, you should do that, my personal favourites, the ones that I use in my own business, are an email list and a Facebook group. I love a Facebook group because it helps really build that kind of community vibe. And it's a great place for kind of building relationships and sort of getting to know people and them getting to know you. And I love an email list because you're showing up regularly in someone's inbox, and there's something personal about that. And there's something, it means that even if they don't need your service now, you'll be front of mind. If you've been providing valuable content to them in their inbox that they enjoy, that they look forward to, then you're going to be front of mind when they need that service that you offer. So those are my favourites, but there's tons of ways you can do it. And then lastly is, you've got those people in your audience, you've built those relationships, you now need to convert them into actual paying customers. And so that's all about how to turn that audience, how to have sales conversations, how to create those sales conversations. It might be a discovery call, it might be getting people to send you a message, it might be creating a sales page and having someone go to a sales page. So again, it's kind of looking at what works best for people, potentially testing different ways, and actually developing sales as a skill. So often I hear people say, oh, I'm rubbish at sales, or oh, I'm not a natural salesperson, and all of this kind of stuff. I don't think many people are natural salespeople. It's a skill that you develop, that you practice. It's like, riding a bike, playing a musical instrument. And I think we tend to sometimes think of sales as more of a personality trait. And I don't think it is. I think it's just a skill. And if you want to get good at it, you study it, you practice it, and you hone that skill. And I'm a big believer in sales through service. So going back to what I said at the start around this kind of ickiness factor, with a lot of the stuff that comes with selling or promoting yourself online or anything like that, I think that tends to come from a lack of alignment with our values. Now, there are tons of ways to sell ethically. There are tons of ways to sell in a values-led way. There are also, sleazy, horrible sales tactics out there that I'm sure we've all seen, but you don't have to use those tactics. And I think we've, to a certain extent, kind of tarred the whole of sales with that brush, so that now all sales somehow feels like it's wrong or greedy or icky. And I think this is particularly true actually with women and with mums. We tend to see it as, a bit aggressive, a bit pushy, a bit, like greedy. I shouldn't be asking money for this,
I was going to ask you, do you help men too, and do you see many differences between men and women when it comes to running their business?
So I not so much these days. I like my target audience are mums, but if a non-mum or a guy or anyone came and said that they were interested in working with, if I thought it was a good fit, I absolutely would. I haven't really. I haven't worked one-to-one with any men. So anything I would say would be purely just sort of observational. But it tends to be, I think, women have, so getting a bit deep here, women, like in society, are almost kind of brought up to be society's nurturers. We are brought up to help. And so there's this real kind of barrier when it comes to charging for that, especially when it comes to charging for something we enjoy doing. And I'm not saying this doesn't happen with men at all. Like, I'm sure it does. But I've really, really seen it with women, and I can often see it sort of linked back to this thing around, well, I'm meant to help people, I'm meant to look after people, and this kind of nurturing thing that it doesn't seem right, and especially when the service is more of a nurturing type service as well. That tends to often be the case, where people don't feel right about asking for money, sometimes at all, or they're so determined to the idea of pricing cheaply is seen as kind. Whereas pricing expensively is seen as unkind, and there's a lot of unpicking that has to be done there, and flipping that on its head, and actually how kind is it if you're charging so little that you go out of business and then you can't serve anyone, whereas if you're creating a successful business where where you have some wealth, you can actually do a substantial amount of good with that wealth. So again, it's this idea, just as I was saying about how sales is often seen as bad, I think money is as well. And there's this sort of belief that, if I become rich, that will make me a bad person, or if I somehow, that makes me greedy. Whereas actually, of course, again, money, like sales, is neither good nor bad. It's what we choose to do with it that can be good or bad. And of course, you can choose to do huge amounts of good with wealth. So there's a lot of that mindset stuff that we have to work on as well. So I mean, mindset is the final part of that framework. So the framework that I tend to kind of go through with all of my clients is first the messaging, then the offer, the whole kind of customer journey, which is the audience building, the relationship building, the kind of the sales element, and then wrapped around all of that is mindset. For me, mindset is actually more important than strategy. This whole thing around kind of self-belief, coming back full circle to your first question about what do you find is the biggest challenge. I mean, simplicity, of course, was one. Actually, self-belief is another one that comes up time and time and time again. I ask, when I have a discovery call with someone, I always ask them, we talk about, where they are now, where they want to be, and we talk about what do you see as the biggest challenges stopping you from getting there right now? And almost always there's some kind of answer relating to, I don't believe in it. I don't believe I'm, self-confidence, self-belief.
Confidence, yeah.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, if we don't believe it, if you don't believe in your value, if you don't believe in the value of your offer, if you don't believe in your pricing, if any of that stuff's going on, it's really difficult to sell and to get clients when there's that sort of stuff going on in your head. So whereas the opposite is also true, that actually if you do have that belief and you believe it's possible and you believe that what you're doing is worth it and that what you are doing is of value, then actually there are many strategies out there that will work for you. So I genuinely think that the mindset part is absolutely fundamental.
Yeah. Do you have any kind of tips that you give people that, when it comes to their mindset and being confident in themselves and what they're doing? Do you have any where does somebody start if they're kind of suffering from these kind of limitations that they're putting on themselves?
So there's a few things. That range from kind of like little simple exercises that I sometimes give people through to, ongoing support. One exercise that actually my coach gave me a few years ago, and was kind of like, oh. And people often like really struggle with, but I think it's really helpful, is basically to list out, I think the original number was 35, but that's just totally, pulled out of a hat. But, 35 reasons why you're awesome. Like why, what makes you great at what you do. And initially, there's always this like, oh, I can't possibly come up with 35. It's like, no, go away and come up with 35. And like people always do. And it's a nice exercise because it gets you, thinking about this stuff. But also it's quite a nice thing to then go back to. So when you are having those moments of like, ugh, I'm rubbish, why am I even doing this? I'm a failure and all this kind of stuff. Then that can be really helpful. So that's just like a simple exercise. Sorry, were you going to say something?
No, I hear that most of thoughts that people have in general are negative thoughts. They're self-talk that they're not even noticing that they're saying to themselves. I've heard that mainly it's negative, so you need to become more aware of what you're actually thinking at any given moment and step in and reframe what you're saying to yourself.
Yes, I love that. So another thing that I do myself and that I often suggest to people, and I hate this word, but I've never been able to come up with a better one, is journaling. I hate the word journaling. But there's a website called 750words.com. Now, of course, you can do this in a notebook or whatever. But 750words.com was actually initially created for writers, because based on the idea that the first 750 words that you write as a writer are always going to be rubbish, so you get those out of the way, and then the kind of creativity starts to flow. So that's why it was originally started, this website. But actually, I think it's now often used as more of a kind of place to journal, just to free write. And the idea is that you literally go every single day and you write your 750 words, and no one's ever going to see it or anything like that. But I have been doing this now off and on for a year or so, and it's just like, I love it. I'm a bit fanatical about it. Anyone in my Facebook group knows that I'm constantly banging on about 750words.com. But it's one of those things where if there's stuff going on in your head, and like you said, there is all this negative talk, and we're really mean to ourselves. You can just get it out, and I think the process of having to either put pen to paper or get it or write it down in some way makes you be more logical. It makes you untangle all the stuff that's going on in there that just sort of feels heavy and feels horrible, and make sense of it. And often actually just that process, it makes you realise this isn't true, this isn't right, that's where your voice is, your mind is saying you're a failure, that you'll never do this. As you type it out, you kind of go, yeah, but actually, this and this. And it always helps to sort of put things in perspective. I have like a sort of I think like a code red list. Well, it's kind of like when you're in that moment of like feeling really rubbish and really like suffering with like imposter syndrome and like and all of that kind of stuff. The first thing is to get some perspective and actually take a step back and kind of go, is this as bad as it feels right now? So maybe, for example, you've just had a launch and you've not made any sales or whatever. Is this as bad as it feels right now? And actually taking a step back and really kind of thinking about it. I'm trying to remember what the other steps are. I can't remember. I have them written down somewhere. Let me see if I can. Oh, here we are. Yeah. So and then journaling is another one, and actually then writing it down and getting it out of your head and turning it into something logical, instead of just these awful thoughts about ourselves. Another big one is to look for the lesson, and this is somewhat it's one of those things that when you're feeling like this, the last advice you want to hear is look for the lesson. But one of my coaches used to say look for the gift, and I was like, gift.
Okay.
But at the end of the day, when things don't go right, or when we're not feeling, this is all part of the journey. Everyone feels like this. Everyone has things that don't go right. Everyone makes mistakes. Everyone's going to have people tell them no. Everyone's going to have, a launch that doesn't go the way they want it to. And when you
you
look
need
at
to make mistakes and have failures. It's part of the process.
Yeah, 100%. When you look at the people who are, the most successful, then, they're the people who have made the most mistakes. They're the people who have failed the most. But they've kept going. They've learned from that. They've, tweaked. They've, changed how they've done things, and then they've kept going. And that's the journey to success, isn't it? So I feel like I slightly got off track there. We were talking about self-confidence, weren't we? But I think it's all related. I think when we can kind of separate ourselves slightly from the process, a big thing is not seeing, like, for example, hearing a no from someone as as an indication of your own personal success or failure. It's so easy that like I say, you've had a discovery call and someone says no, to take that as like a personal thing of like, oh, well, that must mean I'm rubbish at this, oh, that must mean I'm, it's something to do with me. And of course that's, it's so much more complex than that. And the success or failure of our business anyway is not related to us as, as people, and our success or failure as people. So it's a complex thing, but a big thing as well is, of course, mindset isn't the tick. It's not like a tick box. I'm going to do this exercise and then that's my mindset fixed. Tick. It's ongoing. These are things which will happen throughout your business journey. At different stages, you're gonna have mindset stuff going on. So it's about finding tools that are going to help you recognize that that's what it is, and manage it. And I'm a big fan of getting support. So I work with a coach, and one of the biggest reasons I work with a coach is for the mindset stuff, having someone to kind of talk it through with, and to get some perspective.
So there are a lot of still a lot of things involved in what to do in your business life. Even if you've got a system and some steps and ideas of what to go through to get things going and growing. But if your mindset is right in the first place, and you make that a priority of getting in the right frame of mind and talking to yourself in a better way, that kind of thing, everything else should fall into place.
Yeah, I think it's certainly a lot easier. Like, that's not to say you won't. You might need help with strategy. You might need, you might need some support. You might need, it could be like tech help or whatever. But if that mindset stuff isn't there, then I think all the other stuff, you can have the best strategies in the world. You could have,
yeah,
got all the strategy you need, but if in here you don't believe it, and you're kind of doubting every step, then that's you're always going to struggle. So I think you probably need more than mindset, but if you don't have the mindset,
a good place to start.
Yeah.
So about other practical things, do many mums in your community have problems with children, for example, and other family kind of disruptions getting in the way of the business? And do you know of any ways of dealing with that sort of thing?
Yeah. So the two biggest issues I would say relating to like being a mum, having kids, tend to be time, and actually fitting your business in. What happens is you kind of are missing out on family time because you're just like working on your business the whole time, or you're not getting what you want done in your business because there's so much going on. You've got all the school runs, the kids clubs, and all of this kind of stuff, so you literally only have a couple of hours a week left to work on your business. So that's one of the problems that a lot of mums have. And the second one is guilt. like actually getting that right balance between either feeling guilty because you're spending too long in your business and not long enough with your kids, or feeling guilty because you're letting things slip in your business because you've got your kids to focus on. And so kind of trying to find that sweet spot almost. And also I think it's around kind of having boundaries and all of this kind of stuff, and being really clear on what you actually want is another big one for mums. And I think it's about coming back to simplicity, keeping things simple, but also like getting really good at understanding the time that you have and using it really well. So often I'll work with people, and when we kind of dig into, how they're sort of managing their working week, it's, they have this tiny window of time to do their business, and yet when they sit down they haven't got a clue what they're going to do with that time. It's just like, sit down, right, what needs doing? And it's kind of like this constant, chasing your tail. Whereas, if we kind of implement just a planning session, a monthly planning session, like every Sunday, I plan quarterly, I plan monthly, and every single Sunday I plan weekly. I will literally have I've actually got a template of it here, like a sort of timetable almost, where I will block out my week. If I know I've got coaching calls, if I know kids' dentist appointments, I get it all in there so that I know exactly how much time I have, and I can make sure that I'm prioritizing the key things in that time. So
that's
that
good.
it's
So that
as
when
productive.
it's time to do something in particular, you can focus on that, and you don't have to worry or feel guilty about anything else, because you know that everything else is taken care of, and you know what you're doing in that hour, for 100%, example.
Yeah. And then when it comes to like the guilt and all of that comes with it, I think it's about, again, going back to the purpose and the values of your business. So many mums I work with, actually, when you ask them what their sort of reason for setting up a business is, usually the kids is in there somewhere as their sort of why for doing this. It's around, well, I wanted something that would allow me to work around my kids. I wanted something that would give me that balance. And yet so often what happens is, running a business ends up being harder than we think it's going to be, taking up more and more time. And I mean, I found this myself when I used to work in corporate. And one of the reasons I started my business was because I was traveling all the time. I was, away from home a lot. I was working long hours, and I got to the point where I was like, I can't keep doing this. I'm missing my kids' early years.
I read that you had an epiphany one day when your son wanted to go to the park.
Yes.
That's where it all kind of started.
Yeah, it absolutely did. Yeah, so I just, as I say, I was away at least a night a week, and I was home late. I would usually get home just in time to say goodnight, and and that would be it. And I remember, like, one year in particular, going to parents' evening. And I didn't even know what my little boy's teacher looked like, because I hadn't done any of the school runs or anything like that. And we had a childminder who used to send me text messages with pictures of taking them to the park. And so then one weekend we were walking past the park, and little one said, "Can we go?" And I was like, "Yes, I'm going to take you to the park." And we got there, and I hadn't sort of twigged the fact that it had been raining and everything was sort of absolutely soaking wet. Of course, he started crying, and and I was just like, I can't even take him to the park. And I remember just going home and talking to my husband, and like just crying and saying, I can't keep doing this. I handed in my notice 2 weeks later, after some big conversations with hubby and my parents, and sort of working out if I was really going to be brave enough to do this. And I've never looked back. I mean, I would be lying if I said this has been an easy journey. It hasn't. Running your own business is a roller coaster, isn't it? But I don't regret it. I don't regret it. And so often, as I say, this is the case with mums. And what happens is you start this business, and you do have to put work into it. And there is a way to do it and have that balance, but it takes being really purposeful about it, and being really kind of organised about it, and actually sort of thinking, sometimes, like things, for example, things like working at the weekend, right? So there's this whole thing where like, well, I'm going to keep my weekend sacred. I'm gonna, that's for the kids. And sometimes that's great. And sometimes, it's cool to work at the weekends, and that's fine too. And it's about, getting those boundaries right for yourself, and coming back to them, and making sure, like, if this isn't working, if I'm feeling really stressed out, and I feel like I'm not getting enough time with the kids, then what can I do? And actually making sure that you're always sort of sense checking, what's going on in your business, and if your decisions are in line with that core purpose, with that core, actually the reason I started this business was to have this balance. If I do this, is that going to help me achieve that balance, or is this kind of distracting me from it? So I think it's definitely doable. But it does take, some purposeful kind of thinking and planning around it.
And giving it a bit of time as well, no doubt.
Yeah, and sometimes making those tough decisions between, do I grow faster and sacrifice some of that time? And it means for the next 6 months I am going to have less family time, or do I accept that actually this is going to take me a bit longer, but that's fine, because actually to me this family time is more important, and there's no right or wrong. It's about what you want, what's best for you, what's best for your family. But again, I think so often we kind of go into business and we get so caught up in the day to day that we don't necessarily even think about making that decision. We just do, we just are, we're just busy, and we haven't ever actually thought about, is this what I want? Is this how I want to do it? Whereas if we could at least take the step back and kind of go, well, which is more important to me right now? Is it actually, yeah, I want to really go for this for the next 6 months, because that's going to mean that X, Y, Z, and then I can have this family time. Or actually, is it more important that I take longer, and kind of sort of spread things out a bit more?
And you also talk about keeping things light and fun in your business, like building habits and incorporating, not taking things too seriously, basically.
Yeah, so I think, and maybe this comes from my corporate background, and I was 13 years working in corporate. Not to say that we never had fun, we did, but I think one of the kind of joys of having your own business is you get to do it your way, and I actually like, and also I think this really helps to sometimes take the heaviness out of it. When you have got that kind of really heavy feeling, is when you like, almost like, I mean, even like making money, you can almost see it as a game. It's kind of like, how can I, well, we only have one life, and I want to enjoy mine, and I don't want it to be a case of, sometimes when you're in corporate, when you're in that sort of, career ladder and all of that kind of stuff, it becomes almost, well, it's the whole, it's like the working to live, and all this kind of thing. And you can end up just living for the weekend, living for the time off. And I want to enjoy all of my time. I want to enjoy my work, and I want to enjoy my free time, and I want it to all be fun. And the beauty of having your own business is that you can do that. I love being creative. I love writing. And so I have sort of built my business around doing the things. And yes, there will always be things that are less fun. I'm not a big fan of doing my accounts, but I still have to do them. There will always be things that are less fun.
It's a small price to pay, though.
Yeah, absolutely. But you can definitely build a business based around the stuff that you find fun, and you can experiment. A big part of business can often be experimenting and trying new things. That tends to be. I think there's a statistic I heard fairly recently around. They did a poll of like multi-millionaires to sort of see if there were any kind of recurring traits, that could be. And one of them was risk taking. And I think risk-taking sounds quite scary, but actually when you think of it more in terms of kind of experimenting, and I like to sometimes think of it, you're almost like a scientist, and also that helps you to kind of separate yourself from the result, and to sort of hold it all a bit more lightly. It's like, I'm going to try this and I'm going to see what happens, and it might work and it might not work, but either way, then I'll know, and then that I'm further on and I've learned something about what I can do and what I should do, what I shouldn't do in my business. So when it comes to like marketing, different types of content, I always love trying lots of different approaches, and some fall flat, and that's fine, and some like surprise me by doing, I didn't think they'd do so well, and they suddenly do really, really well. But it's fun, and when you can see it as fun, it kind of takes the sort of scariness out of it, I think.
Yeah, it's a very creative thing, being owning your own business, and there's lots of fun to be had.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, I guess it comes back to mindset as well, doesn't it? Like when you can see something as fun instead, then it kind of totally changes your outlook on it, and the way you approach it.
Definitely. So is there anything else that you'd like to add to what we've said so far?
No, I think like if someone's watching or listening to this, and who is in business or thinking about starting a business, then I truly believe anyone can. I really do. I don't think you need. I remember thinking the very first time I thought about having my own business was after my first little boy was born, and I was desperately trying to think of a way to not have to go back to work after my maternity leave. And I remember thinking maybe I could start a business from home, and then immediately shutting it down by telling myself, you can't do that, Colette. You don't have any business qualifications. You're not the kind of person who would be able to do that. And, that was nearly 13 years ago now. And I now realise what a load of old baloney that was, and that, genuinely anyone can. Like if you have the passion, if you have it takes determination. It takes, a bit of risk taking. But if you want to, and you have the passion for it, you absolutely can. So I guess that would be a good way to to round it up.
Yeah, it makes sense. It makes a lot of sense. And I want to ask you another question. Firstly, what's the one best place online where people can find out more about you and what you do, your Facebook community, and I think you've got a free discovery call that you do for people if they'd like to talk to you about anything.
Yes, I do. Yes. So best place to find me, probably my Facebook group. So my Facebook group is called Fully Booked Mums. And it's about 900 and something, mainly mums in there, not all mums. And it's a really lovely, fun community to be in. It's very supportive. So if you're looking for a place to sort of hang out with other business mums, we have weekly workshops, weekly guest lives, G&T Q&As and fun stuff like that. So do come and join us there. And then, yes, I do offer 60-minute strategy calls for anyone who wants a bit of support with their business. Usually the way it goes is we will look at what's going on right now, what made you book the call, what you're kind of looking for help with. We'll look at where you want to be, what your goals are, identify any kind of key things stopping you getting there, and then you'll come away with some sort of next steps to focus on. Usually in those calls as well, if I think my coaching can help you, I will tell you, and I'll ask you if you want to know more about it, at which point people can say yes or no. But either way, you come away with some next steps, and often a lot of clarity, because often this is stuff, again, it sort of buzzes around in your head and things aren't quite right, but you're not quite sure why or what's going on. So this call is about kind of digging into that so that you kind of understand what's actually happening and what you can do to kind of move past that.
Yeah, that sounds good in itself. Just a free call, no matter whether it leads to anything or not. It's just good to talk to somebody who knows what they're talking about.
That is it, and I love talking to people as well. It's really helpful. People often say, "God, why are you giving away free 60-minute calls or whatever?" But actually, it's really helpful for me too, because it helps me really understand what people are struggling with, and that helps me then create offers and content that's going to be relevant and helpful.
And this is the question that I've started asking every guest now. What's the most important thing to do or be for freelancing success?
The most important thing to do or be. The most important thing, I think, is just to take action. I think so often we put things off, we get stuck because we feel like it's not ready, we're not ready, I'm not this yet, I'm not enough this, I'm not enough that, this isn't, and so we wait and wait and wait and wait. And so I think the most important thing is take action, even if you're not sure on the idea yet, even if you're not sure you're ready yet, take action, because that's the best way to actually move forwards.
Just action. Get on with it.
Yeah. Get on with it. Yeah.
Okay, thanks again for joining us, Colette. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for having me. It's been great fun.